Welcome back. In this lesson, we'll be seeing how to integrate Cucumber with Serenity Screenplay. Screenplay is an approach to test automation that uses fundamental software engineering principles and patterns to help make your tests easier to understand and easier to maintain and also more reliable. If you're not familiar with Serenity Screenplay, please take the time to go through the Serenity Screenplay course in the Serenity Dojo curriculum, as I'll be assuming that you have at least a basic understanding of how Screenplay works. These techniques will work both for web tests and non-web tests, or for tests that mix both web and non-web interactions. But for our example, we'll be looking mostly at a web test. In fact, we'll be looking at how you would implement those scenarios we saw in the previous lesson, but this time using Serenity Screenplay. Let's get started. We'll start by checking out the right branch for this project. You can do this in Git by fetching all of the remote branches using git fetch, and then checking out the Lesson 10 Start branch, which contains the source code for our project in this lesson. In Screenplay, we try to model how a user or actor performs some business task by interacting with our application. A task could be something like order my coffee online, or see what drinks I need to prepare next. But an actor needs a stage to perform on. In Serenity Screenplay with Cucumber, we use a stage object to manage the cast of actors that will participate in our scenario. If the test is a web test, this stage object will also manage the WebDriver instances associated with this actor. We need to set the stage before each scenario. In Cucumber, we can do this using the before annotation in our step definition methods. This method will be called before each scenario starts. Inside this method, we're going to use the onStage class to set the stage. The setTheStage method needs a cast. The cast is the object that manages our actors, creating and configuring new instances and keeping track of their names. It's quite an easy class to implement, so we could do it ourselves, and sometimes we need to. But in most cases, we can simply use the online cast that comes with Serenity. The biggest difference when we use Serenity Screenplay with Cucumber is how we handle actors. Each actor has a name. Here we have James. Here we have Jane. They're not the same actor. Each actor has a different browser instance, can see different things, so it's important to distinguish between them. But as you can see here, the actor is defined inside the scenario, not in our step definition code. So we need to be able to pass in the name of the actor and choose the right actor based on the actor's name. Let's pass the name in. We need to make the regular expression a capturing expression because we're going to be passing in the data there, and we need a variable to capture the data, say actor name. Next, we need to use the stage that we referred to previously to get the actor. So we say something like on stage, the actor called, and pass in the name of the actor. And this will give us the actor we need to work with. In Screenplay, business tasks are represented as objects, what we call performables. And we have an attempts to method where we pass in a list of the tasks that we'd like Serenity to perform. So what we need to do here is to create our own performable object that will open the application on a new page with an empty list. Let's call it something like the actor attempts to start with an empty list. Start is our performable class, so we need to create it. We'll put it in a package called tasks. Each performable class needs to implement the performable interface. Now the performable interface has a single method called perform as, which does the actual work. Now the perform as method is a step annotated method that will appear in our report, so we need to annotate it with the step annotation and give it a title. We pass in the name of the actor, that way we will see the name of the actor performing the task. Then we can just say what the actor is doing. So we'd have something like James starts with an empty list. Now let's go back to our step definition and have a look at this factory method with an empty list. This is a utility method that creates a new performable. In Serenity, we need to instrument our performables so that they can appear in our reports. So we can use the instrumented class to do this. We create an instrumented instance of the start class, and that will create a performable that is ready to use and that will appear in our Serenity reports. In the screenplay pattern, at each level, the actor performs tasks. It's just that as we go down and closer to the system or the UI, the tasks become more granular and more concrete. In this task, we want to open the browser at a particular URL. We could just say this, open URL, and then provide the URL that we want to use. And this would work. But the problem is, we'd be hard coding a URL inside our business logic, and this wouldn't be very easy to maintain. So instead, we're going to hide the information away in a page object. We can open a page object using open browser on, and that will accept a standard Serenity page object. But the page object is going to be a little bit different from the ones we've seen previously. Our page object will represent the application homepage. So let's create a field called application homepage and a page object class. We'll put the page object class in the UI package, where all our UI components will go. The page object class simply represents the URL of the homepage, so all we need to do for this class is to have it extend the Serenity page object class. This is our base class that tells Serenity that it is a page object, and then we're just going to use the default URL, which will define the default URL for this page. With this done, our first step should work. Try it out if you're following along at home. Let's continue with the next step in the scenario, when he adds buy some milk to his list. Here, we don't know the name of the actor anymore, but we still need to know what actor we're using, because each actor has a different browser, and in some Cucumber scenarios we might actually have several actors, each with their own different browsers. The way we handle this is with an idea borrowed once again from theatre. Imagine we have a scenario with two actors, Kathy the customer and Barry the barista. First, Kathy places an order. A spotlight shines on Kathy so that the audience can see her. But when Kathy has finished placing her order, we shine the spotlight on Barry so that he can do his bit. So now we can implement the when he adds buy some milk to his list. And we say on stage, the actor in the spotlight attempts to do something. And the actor in the spotlight will get the previous actor that was used in whatever the previous step was. Let's write a task called add a to-do item called. Add a to-do item called buy some milk. This will be our business level task. Now we could implement a performable, but for more readability we can also implement the task interface, which extends performable. It's just a marker interface to make the intent of the code a little bit more clear. And as we did in the previous example, we'll implement the missing methods, the perform as method, and we'll add the step annotation to explain what this task is actually doing. Now this task is a little bit different because we're adding a particular to-do item. So we can say actor or James adds a to-do item called, and then we need to give the name of the to-do item. Now this can come from a field that we define in our task class. Let's call the field thing to do. So for this to work, we'll need a field called thing to do. Let's make it a private string, called thing to do, but this means we're going to need a constructor. So we'll make a constructor with a parameter thing to do. And just like in the previous example, we use a static builder method, called in this case, to create the task. So we'll create this method called, and it will return an instrumented version of the add a to-do item so that we can integrate with the Serenity reports. We say instrumented instance of the name of the class, but this time we need to pass in the constructor parameter. And to do this, we say, rather than new instance, we say with properties, task name. This will return an instrumented version of our add a to-do item for that particular task. Now let's interact with the user interface to enter the things to do value into the input field on the to-do list. We do this using a built-in UI task that comes with Serenity called enter. We say something along these lines: enter the value, things to do, into, we could choose a CSS selector, a web element, a by classic Selenium, or we could choose a Serenity class called a target, which gives a little bit more information in our reporting. So we could say something like attempts to enter the value things to do into the to-do list input field. And we'll call the input field new to do field or new to do. Then we need to hit enter. So we say then hit return. Now all we need to do is implement that to-do list class. Now a to-do list class is a little bit like a page object, but much more lightweight. All it does is contains locators or targets for the particular fields in the to-do list. Now let's create this new to-do field, which will be a target that identifies the input field on in the to-do list. The target comes with a Fluent API that helps you build target objects. We say something like this: target the new to-do field, and it's located by, we could use a by locator or a string. Let's just simply say located by .new to do. So we're using the CSS selector. And that's all we need to do at this stage. Now we have our two steps working. The last step in this scenario is where we check whether the right elements are actually in the list. And we do that using the actor in the spotlight again, but this time we say what he should see. And this should see that construct that you can see here is how we do that. Inside the see that construct, we give a label that will appear in the reports. So we're looking at the items displayed. And then we give Serenity a way of accessing that information called a question. We're just going to call it the items displayed for simplicity. And finally, we have a humcrest assert, which will check something about the response given by that question. Now let's create the question itself. The question will go in a class that we'll put in a package called questions. Now the real question is actually the object returned by the display method. So let's implement that. In Serenity, a question is always about something that needs to return a value. So what we can do is say this is a question that returns a list of strings. Those strings are the values that appear on the page in the to-do list. The way a question works in Serenity Screenplay is that you are asking the actor a question about what he or she sees, and the actor will look at the browser and return information about what is visible on his or her browser. So we implement that using, in this case, a lambda from Java 8, and we ask the actor, tell me the text that you can see in the to-do list items field, and return it as a list of strings, because there can be multiple entries. Finally, all we need to do is implement to-do list items, and that's going to be a locator, a target, like we saw in the previous example. We're going to create a target that will identify all of the elements on the page that represent to-do items. We saw that in the previous exercise. We can identify them by saying .to-do list li, which are all the li's in the list of class to-do list. And now when we run this, we should hopefully have a passing scenario. And there we have it, our scenario passes. So now you've seen how to use Cucumber with Serenity Screenplay. There really isn't that much to it. You need to set the stage using the OnStage class, and by providing a cast of actors for your scenario, there's a built-in one for web tests. And once you've done this, in any step definition, you can get an actor by name, or you can get the current actor who is in the spotlight, which is the most recent actor that you've referred to by name. If you want to see more examples of Screenplay with Cucumber, do take a look at the sample solution for this lesson. All of the scenarios are implemented there. But if you really want to know more details about Screenplay, do take a look at the Serenity Dojo Screenplay course if you've not already done so. So until next time, this is John Smart signing out.